Hi everyone, welcome to your sources lesson of my Medieval Europe website. Again, last lesson we did the introduction. Today we're going to do lesson 1 of sources. There are 2 lessons in this tab, and as well the website link for this will be in the description as well. So you're to know and to be able to write down in your books. You're to know is source work in history, and you're to be able to is explain the difference between a primary and secondary source. Now, even though we haven't started our study of particular topics like famous people and places in medieval Europe, the feudal system, or weapons and knights, it's important that we get a good coverage of source work because it's a very important skill in history. So what are sources? So a source is something that has been created and can be used to gather information about the past. There are many different types of sources which are categorized into 2 areas that you need to know. So the first area is primary sources and secondary sources. So here's some examples of some sources. We have objects, diary entries, statistics, newspapers, photographs, posters, novels, films, and letters. You can see there's a Roman coin here, and as well as some letters. All right, let's start with primary sources. So primary sources are sources that existed or were made during the time of study. So that's how I always remember primary sources. They are made during the time of study. So you need to know the time period that you're studying. Some examples of primary sources are letters, photos, songs, inscriptions, and artifacts such as weapons, tools, coins, and jewelry. Okay, so you can see here we've got some photos from World War II and some ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs as well. Secondary sources. They are made after the time of study, okay, and they are attempts to interpret or recreate the past or the time period that you're studying. So again, examples of secondary sources are textbooks, like the Year 8 Jacaranda textbook here, reference books and documentaries. So here we've got a photo of someone making a historical documentary. We've also got the movie 1917 is technically a secondary source for World War One. So to summarize, primary sources are made during the time of study, secondary sources are made after the time of study, and in our study of the Middle Ages or medieval Europe, we're studying between roughly 500 AD to 1500 AD, okay? So the end of the Roman Empire and then the start of the Renaissance era as well. So I'd like you guys to go ahead and write that in your book so you can remember it. Here I've put together a little PowerPoint of my visit to the Natural History Museum in California and guessing if these are primary and secondary sources. So the largest existing Nautilus fossil. Now this is a primary source because it's an actual fossil that was made during the prehistoric era, so it's made during the time of study. Now, replica dinosaur skeletons, and they told me at the museum there that if it's not behind glass, it's a replica. Sorry, it's real. But if it is behind glass, it is real. But if it's not, then it's fake. So it's a replica. So the key word we have here is replica. So it must be a secondary source. Tiny statues made by Native Americans during the 1500s. These are primary sources because they are made during the time of study. Replicas of human skulls found to show the progress of human evolution over thousands of years. Again, this is a secondary source because they are replicas. Triceratops skulls from 65 million years ago. So we've got behind glass. So these are real skulls, okay? So they are primary sources. A replica whale skeleton is a secondary source. They've made copies of all these bones and hung this whale skeleton from the roof. A model of a polar bear. Again, this is taxidermied, so it must be a secondary source. A paleontologist excavating a fossil of a dinosaur claw. So the dinosaur claw is a primary source. It was made during the time of study. And then lastly, shout out to Mr. Lobsey, the head of English at Macaulay Catholic College in Grafton. We bumped into each other at the Los Angeles International Airport just out of coincidence. So that was pretty cool. Now, your activities for this lesson. So there's a worksheet here, and if you click on this little pop-out button here, it'll bring you the whole worksheet. And what you need to do is look at the source and say whether it is primary or secondary by putting a P or an S in the box there. So we've got ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, replica pieces of a knight's armor, a Roman coin, a Russian helmet from World War II, a painting of William III before he went into battle, and then a drawing of 1940s downtown Los Angeles. And again, saying what a primary and secondary source is. And then lastly, there are some education perfect tasks that your teacher has set for you, called primary and secondary sources. And then to finish off the lesson, there's a Kahoot here on primary and secondary sources that we can play as well. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you for lesson 2, practicing source knowledge. And remember, if you like any of these teaching and learning resources and you want to stay updated to any changes or any new videos I make, please go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you.